Welcome to Dodgers Daily. I'm Casey Porter. I'm so glad that you decided to tune in. We have a very, very, very special guest today, Justin Wrobleski, left-handed pitcher in the Dodgers organization. You know, he went to Oklahoma State, so this is a big one for me, Justin, so welcome on in.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Okay, first of all, congratulations on pitching at Oklahoma State. So I want to start kind of with your time there because obviously that's very important to me. So take us through your time at Oklahoma State.
Yeah, so kind of backtracking to junior college. I didn't know what junior college I was going to go to, and I ended up picking one that, like, I guess not a lot of people would coming out of a D1, I'd say, just not be, first on everybody's list or whatever, but I decided to go to SCF, and then I love my time there, but because I decided to go to SCF, the person that I roomed with is a guy named Cole Ayers, who's with the Yankees now. And I got in contact with him, obviously being my roommate, and he got me in contact with Oklahoma State because that's where he was committed to go. So I ended up, visiting there, loved it, saw the new stadium, loved it there, and got out there and, really, really enjoyed my time, obviously aside from hurting my elbow, but it was a great time out there. I loved it. I love the coaches. I love the feel. I love, everything about it. So I can't complain about my time there. Nothing but great things to say about all the guys there for sure.
Okay, we're going to back up a little bit. And SCF, the State College of Florida, Austin Chubb, the manager of the High A Great Lakes, and then also Robbie Pito, who was a pitcher on that team last year, they both went to SCF. So yeah. That's a program maybe not a whole lot of people nationwide know about a lot, but if you know that the college baseball scene, that is a JUCO program that is definitely one of the best in the country, aren't they?
For sure.
Yeah. Okay. So let's go ahead. Sorry.
I talked to Robbie about it a couple of times, and I didn't know when I first met him that he went there, and then we exchanged stories about 2-1 Coach Hill there and all those guys. So pretty funny, pretty small world,
Okay, you have a lot of experience as far as having people around you that have big-time athletic experience. Both your mom and your dad went to Iowa State, and ironically, I was at the last game that Iowa State played college baseball-wise in Oklahoma City at All Sports Stadium at the Big 8. Back then, it's the Big 12 now, but the Big 8 baseball tournament. So ironically, you had a mom and a dad that both went to Iowa State. Dad was a diver. Mom was a tennis player. So, boy, you had a family full of great athletes, didn't you?
Oh yeah. It's kind of funny because diving's something that's more niche and things like that. But my dad did it for a long time and he was good at it. So it's pretty cool to kind of hear his stories about the Big 8 and all that stuff. And I haven't really talked to my mom about her tennis days that much. But yeah, it's pretty crazy to kind of I guess it's just been normal for me to kind of yeah, my parents both played college athletics, but that's not normal for everybody else. So it's pretty cool.
I would have to think the mom, being a Division I tennis athlete, she could probably hit a fungo too.
I'm sure she could if she tried.
Okay, let's go all the way back to Canyon, Georgia, just about 45 miles north of Atlanta. Sequoia High School, Coach Whiteley. You had a great career there in high school, so let's back all the way up to your time back at Sequoia High School.
Yeah, I think going to Sequoia was a great thing for me because it's not necessarily a powerhouse in really anything. It's kind of getting there now. We're getting more and more people as the where I live is getting bigger and bigger, and they're building more and more houses and things like that. But when I was there, it was a little bit smaller. I wouldn't say it's super small, but it was a little bit smaller, and we weren't the greatest team. So we made state playoffs 1 year out of my 4 that I was there. But, that just made that year when we made it my senior year, I think that made it so much sweeter than, a lot of these kids that go to these powerhouses and it's like, yeah, we won state 3 times. I'm like, yeah, man, we made the playoffs once and it felt like we won state when we made the playoffs. I remember the game we made it, we had to win the rubber match of this series against Sprayberry, which is where Michael Chavis went and a couple other guys. But we had the rubber match, and I threw that game, and I threw the best game of my high school career, and ended up winning on a walk-off that my buddy hit. So it was pretty fun, man. I love my time there. So.
And you mentioned it being a little bit more rural and Clemson, South Carolina, Oklahoma State. Those are kind of those smaller college town type environments. Yeah. Is that what drew you to both of those places?
I've never thought about it that way, but maybe. I didn't like a lot of the schools that I went to that were in cities. It's just like, I'm not the biggest fan of like. I just didn't want to go to college somewhere like that, if that makes sense. I went
Yeah.
to Clemson, which is obviously very small town feel, and then to Bradenton in Florida, which is obviously another kind of small town. You know how
Yeah.
Bradenton is, and then Oklahoma State, Stillwater. But yeah, that could be very well part of the reason.
Yeah, you got to break in the O'Brate Stadium for the very first, I believe the stadium opened in April, didn't start the season there, but you got to pitch one of the very first games there against Vanderbilt, didn't you?
Yeah, that was great. It was fun. The hype leading up to that game was great, and then unfortunately we ended up I think we got rained out on Friday, so we had to play doubleheader Saturday, and I pitched game 2, and it was just kind of one of those mad games, but it was great. It was a lot of fun. It's something I'll definitely never forget. I got a lot of my buddies from high school play at Vanderbilt, so it was good. It was good to kind of see them and play against them, and play in O'Brate against one of the best teams in the country, obviously. So it was great.
Yeah. Yeah, and the hype, most of the hype, of course, there's a lot of hype with Vanderbilt coming in and Oklahoma State was highly ranked, but most of the hype was on the pitching side, so that had to be fun for you too, wasn't it?
Yeah. It was fun. It was fun. It was pretty cool to kind of, go toe to toe with those guys. Kumar, I've known him for the longest time, so it was great to kind of watch him pitch, and then pitch the game after him against Leiter, who's obviously one of the best college arms at the time. So it was awesome.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So, okay, let's back up still just a little bit. I know we're bouncing back and forth a little bit. That's okay. Okay,
No,
so you're an all-stater coming out of Sequoia. You're all-county, obviously, and you chose to go to Clemson. And Clemson's one of the best college baseball programs. Of course, everybody now knows them for football because they've been so good. But
right.
I don't think people realize just how good the Clemson baseball program has been over the years. And you busted your way right in, man. I mean, you talk about coming from a smaller school, and you went right in there and just started pitching right away as a true freshman, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. I ended up kind of winning one of the weekend spots. Come the start of the year, it was a little bit of a bumpy road to get there. I actually got hit by a car in the fall, so I was out for a couple of weeks in the fall, and yeah, I was two-way and doing all this stuff. I was an engineer, which was not the smartest idea there, but no, it was good. I'm glad I got that experience. I'm glad I got to, I started on weekends for I think the first 3 or 4 weekends, and then kind of came out of the pen. But yeah, it was good. It was, definitely something I learned from more than something I look back on super fondly.
Yeah.
But it was good for me. I think I wouldn't trade. I wouldn't have rather gone somewhere else and had my path be different, because I think if it was, I wouldn't be where I am today. So I think it was a great experience for me as far as a learning and kind of figuring out who I am and what I need from a coaching staff, or what I need from, a pitching coach, et cetera. And I just ended up kind of just not working out, but that's just how it goes sometimes.
Okay, so you get drafted coming out of high school. So, the decision there is for, of course, you had the Division I athletes for parents. You had people around you that knew what big-time athletics looked like. So I'm sure you had a lot of people to help you with that decision. But why did you veer away from the professional ranks at that point and decide to go to college?
I kind of, it was kind of just I'm going to bet on myself kind of deal. And that's kind of what it came down to. It was I want to go to school. If I don't get X amount, or if I don't get, X round, I'm just going to go to school. And that's kind of what happened. And, again, hindsight's 2020. It's yeah, maybe looking back, I'd, say I want to get drafted, blah, blah, blah. But at the same time, I think you can't trade in the valuable experiences from, JUCO and Oklahoma State and Clemson, just all those experiences. I think you can't really put a price on that. I think those are very important. And you know what, I'm kind of happy that I didn't decide to go out of high school, because I don't know if I was necessarily ready yet. So,
yep. Yeah, unfortunately, about April of your last year there in college at Oklahoma State, you have elbow soreness. It ends up being Tommy John surgery, something of which you're still coming back from. You came back in the normal 13 months, but although, a lot of people don't realize just because a pitcher's back, that doesn't mean that they're exactly back from that injury. So kind of take us through that process, the the rehab to it, and how this season looks like it's going to play out for you getting back from that Tommy John.
Yeah, so I actually kind of backtracking to, I want to say it was our game against West Virginia or Kansas State, it might have been. That's where I kind of started to feel like I'd come with a forearm, just be locked, and I'm like, damn, like I feel good, but it's not like it's coming out okay, but like I just don't feel right.
Well, and you threw a bunch of innings early in that season. It seemed like you did.
I did. Yeah, I threw a bunch of good games, but unfortunately, it was just, I don't know. It might have been, I broke my jaw in JUCO, so I was out for a little bit in JUCO, and then I lost a bunch of weight, and then came back, so I lost a bunch of velo, then came back, gained a bunch of velo back. It was just kind of one of those deals where it's like, yeah, I understand why I got hurt, but I ended up getting hurt, and then go get surgery in Cincinnati with Dr. Kremchek, and then just kind of hang out until the draft, because that was the first year the draft got moved back instead of being in June, so it was in July, and so I got to stay home with the family for a little bit, just kind of rehab here, and then got drafted. They sent me to Arizona, and I was kind of in Arizona for that whole rehab period. So just hanging out, they do a great job with the Dodgers, kind of towing the line between like they're definitely obviously more careful, especially in pro ball. Just trying to get you back, especially since they're invested in you. But they did a great job, man. Like, I kind of it's kind of weird because I enjoyed like the kind of grind to get back. That's just kind of who I am. Like, I'm not like it gave me something to do, and it gave me like, kind of that fire to be like, all right, let's get back and let's like show them who I am for real, instead of like, I was hurt against TCU. I was hurt for probably my last 2 or 3 starts of my Oklahoma State year, which kind of, I hurt my command, I would say, and hurt my ability to do what I wanted to do, because that fall at Oklahoma State, man, like I was like, all right, this is going to be a great year. Like I'm gonna have a great year, and then I ended up getting hurt.
I got to see most of your inner squads, by the way. Yeah.
Yeah, that was fun. But the rehab process is great, and I'd say like, I can't thank the Dodgers enough. I can't thank Ron Porterfield and all the trainers just helping me out and getting me through it. So it was great, man.
It's never good timing to have an injury, especially Tommy John. But I tell you what, if you talk to most of the pitchers in the organization, of all the pitchers I've talked to, I would say the vast majority of them have had Tommy John. So I mean, if you're talking about, like I said, there's never good timing for it. But again, you were still young, and you got it over with, and you got it out of the way, and you were in an organization going all the way back to Walker Buehler that has shown an amazing amount of success against this injury.
Exactly. And that's kind of the light when I look at it. It's like, yeah, like I was sad, obviously, like it hurt my draft stock, it hurt this, it hurt that. But, I think if I don't get hurt, obviously I don't end up with the Dodgers, and I don't kind of, meet the people that I do here, and kind of, I think I made steps during, when I was coming back from TJ before I could even throw, like mechanic wise, to just like figure stuff out. Like, I don't think I figure that stuff out if I'm with anybody else. So I'm super thankful that the Dodgers obviously took me, and I'm super thankful that I'm with the Dodgers. So I have no complaints. That's for sure.
So just kind of listening to you talk, 11th round, and I have seen you pitch, and I know that you are absolutely top shelf. As soon as Dodgers fans get to see you pitch fully healthy, they're going to be like, wow, who is this guy? Because I'm just telling you, the metrics are off the chart. The fastball is mid-90s when everything's going right. The command is just absolutely perfect. So as far as the metrics and the stuff, man, I'm just telling you, Dodgers fans, go out and see this guy, better known as Wrobo, Justin Wrobleski, because he is simply fantastic. So 11th round, I'm sure you mentioned a minute ago that, the Tommy John, that had you a little bit under the radar. So do you kind of feel like you're under the radar and a little bit in an underdog role right here? And is that something that you enjoy?
Oh yeah, man, I love that. I felt like that, for a long time. Just because, where I went to high school, kind of like being overlooked for all the All-American stuff in high school, that just kind of fuels me. I kind of like that. I like, being the underdog. I don't know what I'd do if I wasn't, because that's just kind of how it's always been for me. Because I'm not that 6'5", 6'6" guy that just, looks crazy. Like I just think it's something that I enjoy and something that kind of adds a little fuel to the fire and kind of, something that I think about like when I'm working out, when I'm, throwing my bullpens, when, I'm out there and something goes wrong. It's just like, I think it definitely is something that fuels me. I will say for sure it's something that maybe I'm not always consciously thinking about, but something that definitely kind of helps me through like harder times in the gym or when I don't want to train and things like that.
Yeah, and you're that guy that, you watch you throw a bullpen and you're like, okay, and then all of a sudden you start looking at the actual data that comes out of it and you're like, holy smokes, this is I'm just telling you, Dodgers fans, it's legit. So, okay, so let's talk about your stuff. I've been bragging on it here for the last couple of minutes, and I've seen it with my own eyes from up close. And again, fastball, I'd say 93, 95 at this point, in my opinion. I think that projects even more as we go on down the road. You have the slider and the changeup. The slider breaks into right-handers. You have what's called the supination and the pronation to it. So you have literally everything that you need to face, good hitters and good lineups multiple times. So talk about your stuff, where it's at right now.
Yeah, I think stuff is actually in probably the best place it's been since surgery. There was a time, obviously, so after surgery, curveball was my best pitch in college. And after surgery, finding that curveball was a little tough. Like just trying to, after I had surgery, it's just tough for me to get that supination feel back. And I actually didn't get it back until Instructs. And Instructs like finally clicked back, and then finally it was like, all right, now it's finally back to wipeout curveball, and then made some tweaks to my slider so it's a little bigger, which I'm excited about. It's not a pitch that I throw a ton, but it's going to be a pitch that's going to be used, especially to left-handers. Fastball, I think that's probably a tick better right now. I've only thrown a couple side sessions here in the off season, but I think it's trending in the right direction. I think I'm starting to spin it better, starting to ride it a little bit more. So I'm really happy with where that's at. I think that's also due to a couple mechanical changes front side wise that I've made just since the last Instructs. Cutter's another one where it's like I finally figured that out at the end of Instructs. Like everything was like, dang, when I'm at the end of Instructs, like everything just feels great. And, it makes sense because that was my, technically like 6th week of my season or whatever. So that was good. And then changeup, it's always been kind of a staple for me, just something I can dump in zone whenever I need to, or something that I can get a strikeout to a right-hander that's maybe a little out in front of stuff. So I'm really excited. I've worked really hard to kind of recreate that arsenal because in high school I was a two-seam guy doing this weird slurve thing, and so it's came a long way. But I'm super excited for kind of where it's going to go and where it's going to be, because you never know until you show up at spring training and you throw in that first game how your stuff's going to be. So I'm excited.
Would you consider yourself to be a different kind of pitcher now than even you were in college?
Yes, I think so. I think a big thing with that is that I kind of get to throw like what I want to throw more so. It's not necessarily what Rob calls. Not to say Rob calls bad games. Not to say that, but it's just when you're in college, a lot of times the coaches are calling games. Whether it's even a JUCO, like coach was calling the games, Donnie was calling the games. So it's just kind of one of those deals where it's a little bit of a learning curve to kind of call your own game. But I think that's something I enjoy and something I take pride in and try to make sure I'm always talking to the catcher and game planning correctly and. Not looking too much into it, but game planning in a way where I set myself up for success and kind of know what I can fall back on if X isn't working. So that's for sure kind of the biggest separator. And then other than that, like obviously adding the cutter and adding the bigger slider, I think is going to be something that really helps.
Okay, this is going to be a big year for you. So, I'm sure you're working hard to prepare for it. So tell us about your routine and everything you've done to this point, some of the things that you're honing in on specifically and your routine moving from here on forward.
Yeah, I'd say my big focus this offseason was just to have an offseason, I guess, because, when I was rehabbing, obviously I didn't really have much of an offseason. I was out in Arizona. I never thought of it that way, but that makes total sense. Yeah. I was rehabbing. It was just kind of like, constantly grinding and lifting a bunch and, just trying to get myself back. So this offseason, I think the biggest thing was kind of just like, all right, hit that mental reset just a little bit and kind of figure it out. And then, there's a couple, I'd say, mobility things that I've been working with a lot of the pitching coaches on and the strength guys. So I've been kind of honing in on getting my back a little more mobile, especially like my upper back. But other than that, like, it's just kind of business as usual. Get bigger, get stronger. I think I've gained like 7 or 8 pounds since I've been home, which has been the plan. I lost. So I was 205 at Oklahoma State, and I was strong. And then obviously when you have surgery, you lose all that muscle. It turns to fat. So then I was fat. And then when I got drafted, they took all that weight off me. So like by the end of last year, I was like 183. I was like, oh God, this is the smallest I've ever been. And then, thankfully with the program they've given me, I put my weight back on and kind of feeling in a spot where I'm almost where I want to be come spring training, but obviously got a little bit of ways to go. But just trying to put on weight, put on strength, and throw gas. So that's about all there is to it.
Have they told you how much they're going to let you off the leash in terms of pitch count this next year?
They have not. I'm just going to go out there and throw whatever they tell me to. You know how that is. But obviously as a competitor, as a guy who likes to kind of go deep into games and wants to go deep into games, obviously that's tough. But at the end of the day, like, they're just trying to protect me, and I need to be not short-sighted with it and understand that I want to pitch in the big leagues, and that's kind of where they want me to pitch. So I got to make sure that I understand that and that's why they're doing what they're doing. So
this is a statement for me and me only, but having seen you and I know quite a bit about your pitching acumen, I promise you, as long as we stay healthy and everything stays on the right course, you will end up in the major leagues. No doubt about it. In my mind, Wrobo is that good. Wrobo is, as he's known, Justin Wrobleski is who we're talking to. So, hey, you have a great message for kids. You mentioned you came from the smaller town. You went to the college towns at Oklahoma State and Clemson. Then you had to deal with the Tommy John surgery. So you've kind of always been in that underdog role, which is really probably about 99.9% of all the kids that want to become a major leaguer is right now. So what is your message for them?
I'd say just I'd say hard work is number one, obviously, but that's kind of what everybody says. I think it's how you handle when things don't go your way. I think that's the most important thing. Not just on the field. I think off the field is just as important. You got to figure out, you got to understand that things aren't going to go your way, probably more than they are going to go your way. I mean, obviously as a pitcher, you're going to have a little more success, but at the end of the day, like, understand that you're going to fail, and know that kind of who you are as a person is how you react to those failures and how you react to when things don't go your way. Because that's something that I've unfortunately had to learn a lot with getting hit by a car, breaking my jaw, having Tommy John, blah blah blah, like all this, all that. Like, it's just important to understand, like, things are going to go wrong, but it's kind of how you handle when things go wrong that kind of makes you as a person and will make you as a player.
Before we get off, I know you play with Max Hewitt, who's in the Dodgers organization. Can you explain what kind of teammate he is?
He's a great teammate, man. I think out of all my teammates I've had, Max is definitely one of my favorite. Obviously being a catcher, like, that helps. That helps for sure. But, Max is a great guy, like, great guy to hang out with, great guy to, just be in the clubhouse with. He works so hard, man. This guy's, people don't really understand how hard he works and how much he puts into it. And you can't, obviously that's not always like quantifiable, but this guy, like, he puts in hours and hours and hours trying to get better at this and get better at, whatever it is, whether it's catching, whether it's hitting. Like, guy will be in the cage for hours, guy will, but he'll do anything for you, man. He's a great teammate, and I'm glad that he's with the Dodgers, and we could kind of journey together. So it's awesome that I have him.
And hopefully you get caught up with him. He was at High Great Lakes last year. I think you're going to ascend, health, like I said, health withstanding. I think you're going to ascend through this organization pretty fast and start turning some eyes real quick here in the next year or two. So, hey, Wrobo, Justin Wrobleski, I'm so glad when I reached out. I was so excited having, I'd never really got a chance to meet you while you're at Oklahoma State, but, now that you're with the Dodgers, my two favorite baseball teams, I love baseball, I love Oklahoma State, I love the Dodgers. So when I reached out, I was just so hoping that you would message back and want to come on, and you did. Hey, thank you so much, and hopefully this isn't the last time we get a chance to talk.
Yeah, hope not. Hope not. Go Pokes, and thank you for having me on, man. This was great.